Hey there, everybody. Dr. JP Guidry here, back with the next lesson in the 5 pillars of golf performance training. Today, we're going to discuss pillar number 4, which is nutrition. And we're going to talk about nutrition both from a general health standpoint as well as it relates to performance on the course and in-round hydration, in-round nutrition. So when I talk about nutrition, I always start with habits, because the reality is if you want to make changes in uh, your nutrition, your diet, your eating, it's really about making changes in your habits and how you approach these things and your mindset towards these things. So I want to touch in a little bit in some things, some basic things that we can do to help make it easier to make changes in our habits. Most of this information is derived from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I highly recommend reading this book if you want to make any type of changes in your life, health, fitness related, or otherwise. Something I kind of read and reread once a year because it's full of a lot of useful information that you can put into practice into your life, regardless of what habits you're trying to change. So some basic things when we talk about habit change. First thing is making it easy. So, he says, start with a habit that's so easy you can't say no. And so what this means, so if we put this in the context of eating, this may mean just attacking it one meal at a time. So you may start with breakfast and let's make some healthier choices for what we're eating for breakfast. And let's do that and only that meal until you can get consistent with that. Once you've gotten consistent with that, you can move on to the next meal. Some other basic changes are, kind of how you may approach eating. So this is slowing down how you eat, putting your utensils down, taking a breath in between meals, making sure you drink lots of water, kind of doing a fridge and a pantry purge, if you will, kind of getting rid of all the unhealthy stuff and only keeping healthy options, or even something as simple as keeping the unhealthier options in on a high shelf or somewhere where it's not easy to get to. It's not right there in your eye line, and make the healthier options easier to get to. So these are just kind of basic, simple changes to start that habit change. Second is figuring out what holds you back. So I always have my clients start with a 2 to 3 up to a 5 to 7 day food journal. And this kind of tells them and tells us truly where they're at. The reality is most of them and most of us as humans, we underestimate how many calories we're taking in. And when we write it all down and look at exactly everything we're putting in our body, eating, drinking, even everything we're cooking with, such as oils and things like that, reality is it's usually a lot higher caloric intake than we think we're taking in. So we have to kind of know where we're at, know where we're starting with, and be able to, that allows us to be able to start to make those changes and find out where we need to make changes. So, another way is know what are your cravings. So what are the kind of the foods that you crave that may be less healthy? So if you're a sweets person, that may be something as simple as not keeping sweets in your house, or replacing them with, something like watermelon, which is very low calorie, Powerade Zeros if you like to have a drink, a flavored drink, or, a piece of dark chocolate as your kind of your after dinner dessert. Next is always have a plan for when you fail, because you are going to fail. Anytime you're making changes like this, you're not going to be perfect with it. It's not going to be a straight line of getting better and better and better. It's going to be ups and downs. And so you kind of have to, when starting, you almost have to expect there's going to be failures, and then you kind of plan for that. You do things to try to minimize these failures, if you will, but the reality is they're going to happen. You're going to get off track, whether it's one meal or you miss a workout or whatever that may be. And that's okay. I mean, that's human. And sometimes, it's okay to purposely do that. If you have a special event, it's okay to have a, quote unquote cheat meal every now and then. The key is not letting that turn into a cycle of going backwards. So, in his book, James has a quote, never miss twice. So if you're going to have one, cheat meal, make sure the next meal you're back on track. If you miss one workout, make sure the next day you're back at the gym. That's the important part of this, is understanding that you're going to fall off. It's okay to fall off. It's okay to do it, every now and then, but we don't want one to turn into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. You're not going to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I miss workouts. I eat, probably twice a month. I eat a large pizza myself. That's my favorite meal. But I usually follow that up with some kind of a fasting day, or understanding that, okay, if I want to hit my goals from a weight standpoint, then I need to cut down on that after that. So, being consistent and building consistent habits isn't about being perfect. So let's talk about just the basics of nutrition. If your goal is weight loss, the reality is that you need to take in less calories than you're burning. If you're trying to just maintain, then you want to keep that about even. If you're trying to gain weight, then you need to be taking in more calories than you're burning. I usually have most people start with their protein intake. And so generally you want to be around 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight. So if, just to make it math simple, if your goal body weight was 100 pounds, you need to be taking in 75 to 100 grams of protein. So, and then we start to build our meals around that goal. Some basic, simple tips. Some of these we've talked about, but when looking at eating for health, eating for weight loss, eating for performance, eating until you're 80% full and stop, and giving it 20 minutes for that food to digest. What that time is going to let those kind of internal triggers that tell you you're full catch up with you. Along with that is eating slower, as we talked about. Put the utensils down, take a breath in between your bites. When building your plate, so serving a meal, make sure the veggies, greens, and the lean protein take up the majority of your plate, and then everything else kind of, smaller. So it may not be cutting out things such as carbs, but maybe we're just cutting back on the portions of those type of carbs, pastas and rice and beans and potatoes and things like that. And increasing, the portions of our greens, our veggies, and our lean proteins. I'm not a huge fan of restrictive diets. They can be a way to lose weight early on, quicker, but you always need to have a plan. I usually say I wouldn't stay on a restricted diet more than 30 days, but you need to have a plan of slowly cycling off of that, because most people, what they do is they go on a restricted diet and then they make a hard swing the other direction, and kind of overcompensate for whatever they were cutting out, and generally put the weight back on, if not put more on. Again, we want to build around lean proteins, following that with, so even if you're vegetarian, there's still tons of good protein options. And then, focusing on calorie dense foods, veggies, potatoes, rice, fat, fruits, and getting healthy fats. I'm a big fan of tracking these things. I use an app called MyFitnessPal. There's other similar apps out there. They all probably do the same thing. The benefit of that, it's got a barcode scanner, so you can scan foods and it inputs the macros, protein, carbs, fat, calories in. You can also do it old-fashioned by just writing it down. If you're trying to lose weight, again, you have to know how many calories you're taking in, and you have to be able to adjust. So if you're taking in, let's say, 1,800 calories a day and you're not losing weight, well, then that means we need to cut down some calories. So this is just a simple, I'm not going to go too deep into this. Again, you'll have access to this PDF. Just for your understanding, 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories, 1 gram of carbohydrates equals 4 calories, 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. So that kind of, you can do that math to tell you how to get to your caloric goal. And when doing this, don't get too caught up in day to day. Our body doesn't start over each day. This is something I took from Mike Gorski of MG Fit Life. He's a registered dietitian. So if your goal is 1,800 calories a day, don't look at it as you've got to hit that 1,800 every day and then start over the next day. I like to look at it, view it over a 7-day period. And as long as you're averaging out 1,800 calories, so you can have 1,900 one day, 1,700 another, then you're going to see the same changes as if you were having 1,800 a day. So this gives you a little bit of freedom to, if you do go over, to make up for that the following day, and understand that, but you're still trying to hit that mark as an average over 7 days. So it makes it a little easier. It makes it a little less stressful than trying to kind of hit this number every day, because the reality is you're probably not going to do that. But it gives you some leeway if you can average it out and understand if you go over, the next day you just may have to go under a little bit. All right, now let's get into in-round performance. So we'll start with in-round hydration. And I'm going to take this from an article or a study shared by Alex Ellert. If you are on social media, I highly recommend following him. He's on Twitter at Alex M. Ellert and Instagram at golf_physiologist. He's my go-to guy when it comes to golf research. And so this is just kind of one article. It's a bit of cherry picking, but we kind of can expand from this, and there's some other studies on this. So essentially the takeaway from this article is, and I have a PDF at the end that we'll look at, is that a small amount of dehydration, and they looked at this as a % loss of body weight, can affect your golf performance. And the performance measures they looked at is the golfers that were slightly dehydrated lost distance, lost accuracy, and it also affected them mentally with less accuracy in judging distance from the hole on golf shots. So staying hydrated throughout the round is very important. This starts the night before, starting that hydration the night before, the morning of, and keeping that going throughout the round. And we'll touch a little more on the PDF at the end as far as the details of that study. And especially when we get into the summer months, it is very important to keep your hydration levels up. In-round nutrition. So again, this starts with the night before, the morning of. So we still, there is importance in, the general health. So still having a good healthy dinner, a good healthy breakfast that's not too heavy, but gives us our protein, our fats, our carbs, that kind of fills up our gas tank. And then making sure we're refilling that gas tank throughout the round. So I usually recommend every 3 to 4 holes, some kind of light snack. So for most people, somewhere halfway through the first 9, something maybe a little heavier at the turn, but still pretty light, and then another snack halfway through the back 9. And then you can also utilize based on how you feel energy-wise. Most people that tell me they fatigue towards the end of a round, it's not a cardiovascular endurance issue, but it's rather a nutrition issue. And so you have to kind of keep our energy levels up. We want to try to keep our insulin levels pretty level so we're not spiking up and down. And we want to make sure, like I said, we're replenishing that gas tank with those nutrients we need to produce a golf swing, to be able to walk in between shots, all the things that are involved in playing golf, especially tournament golf. So the light snacks can be, some combination of, so you have your healthy fats, your nut butters and nuts, protein, beef jerky, low-calorie protein bars, carbohydrates, dried fruit, crackers, even, something like a Snickers or candy bar for a quick pick-me-up is okay. we just don't want to make that the only thing you're snacking from. At the turn, maybe something lighter like a a turkey sandwich or something like that. It's not too heavy, but maybe still a little more of a meal than a snack if you can. And again, the point of all this is to replenish our system so that we can maintain our energy levels throughout the round and we're not spiking up and down. So we'll finish up here with, this is just a little PDF, a little infographic, sorry, on the study. So I just want to go down to the results here again. So they looked at mild dehydration and what they consider mild dehydration, which is a decrease in body weight at 1.45% and a change in urine color. And again, the golfers that demonstrated this demonstrated shorter carry, less accuracy, and then less accuracy with judging distance than the hydrated golfers. So it is very important to stay hydrated. It's very important to keep our nutrition proper throughout the round, keep our energy levels and our insulin levels pretty even keeled throughout the round for decision making, for performance physically, and so to make sure that we're performing as well on the 18th hole as we are on the first tee. Again, so this is kind of a general overview. If you're really looking for more detailed diet and nutrition advice, I recommend finding a coach. That's something that I implement as part of my coaching programs, but have some more detailed guidance. This is just kind of a general overview of making some changes in your diet and nutrition, both for health and as well as performance on the course. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at johnpaul@guidrypt.com.